Okay, so in this video, we are going to cover all things validity. I know a lot of times circulators turn in their work and we talk about validity and they look at us and they don't know what we're talking about. So this is about as thorough as I can cover on the subject. Okay, and so what we did here is, first of all, when we get the work in, we find out, did it have the right county? Okay, so is there a county filled in? This is on all the state issues. Okay, pretending that this is San Diego people here. These are not real signatures. Okay, fill these in just for this demonstration. Okay, if this was Riverside, let's say somebody came in, they were from Riverside County, we can sign it. They would have to get a new paper and have them all from Riverside. Okay, because these go to a different county to be validated. So it's important that, because San Diego can't validate a Riverside, that all of these have to be. If somebody on here was from Riverside, they would immediately get striped off. So what we did here is, so let's say this was San Diego, and we're pretending that this circulator talked to these 9 people here in San Diego. And so this is the Doe family, starting with John Doe. Now, John Doe, he printed his name, he signed his name as he registered to vote. The Does now live at 123 First Street in San Diego, 92101. So this one is a good signature. So first of all, it qualified. Okay, this is the first distinction. It qualified, meaning that it filled all 4 of the spaces and it was in the correct county. So that's what's made it qualified. Now, whether it was valid or not valid was the second question. Was the name right? Yes. On our system, I matched it, and sure, they live at 123. So all the information we're going to pretend was correct. So what will happen is it will end up getting a G for good, and a very advanced system, G for good, over here on the left. Now, Jane Doe, his wife, signed. That's right, printed and signed her name. Unfortunately, she forgot that they moved. She thought they still lived at 111 Apple Street, and unfortunately, so that one is not valid. Now, it does qualify. Remember, it qualifies because it has all the spaces filled out and the city's in the right county. So it does qualify, but it's, if we looked at the system, we'd see that Jane Doe is now registered at 123 First Street, so that won't be a valid signature, so she's going to get a B for bad. Okay, so there's only G's and B's over here this far, unless it's a duplicate. Now, Sally Doe. Okay, Sally Doe is the daughter, 123 First Street, San Diego, California. And so is she registered to vote? Yep, she's registered to vote. Okay, good. So we got a G for good for her. Okay. Next we have Bob Doe. Now Bob Doe, he's getting a little older, and he forgot to put in the address. He left it blank. So this is not a good or bad signature. It didn't even make it to the stage where we find out if it's valid. This one just didn't count. Okay, so this one is not qualified. So it's going to end up getting a line through it, right, like that. One line, boom. And so they'll know to black stripe it out later. So that one won't count. In fact, we'll do it now. I'm going to mention, I guess I can mention these markers now. This is never to be done by the circulator, and the reason is because there's only one marker that we found on Earth that has the amazing capability of black striping on top, but not bleeding through the other side. Now, if it bled through the other side, even one word, it would invalidate all the signatures. So this is the only product we found on Earth that does that. That's why I use that marker. Otherwise, if you use a black marker, you will go through and ruin all of your signatures. Okay, I'm doing this for your demonstration. It'll make it easier to point some things out later. Okay, next, Barbara Miller Doe. Okay, very good. Barbara Miller Doe did a good job here because she realized that Miller was her maiden name, but when she got married, she hyphenated it to Miller Doe. So that's Barbara Miller Doe, 123 First Street. And so that's a good signature. Now, her husband Carl Doe, whom she married to get the family name, he thought he could just do this. He put in these, same as. Unfortunately, Carl, that does not count. Each person has to put in their own information, so Carl's is out. Okay, now Kenneth Doe. Kenneth thought this was funny. He put the right information, but he put this big squiggly thing through there, and that's not his actual signature. His actual signature, the city has listed, it looks like that. So we don't know about that signature. The bigger problem is, and now you won't be able to tell that when you collect these signatures. I'm just pointing that out. The signatures are something we validate at the end. Only the city has them. So they will be matching identical signatures. Also something we do to prevent from forgeries. The one thing that if somebody tried to fill in names they couldn't do is know the person's identical signature. And so if the city ever got them back, they do look through each one. And a lot of times forgers don't realize this. So by the time it gets to the city, they end up getting in some serious criminal trouble from, imagine these fake signatures being turned in as real signatures. That's some serious penalty there, looking at jail time, a lot of it possibly. So for one, we never mess with the signatures ourselves. If these were blank, I would never fill one in because there's definitely ways of tracing it, and people go they take this very seriously. This is a voting matter. Okay, so Kenneth shouldn't have done that. But the other thing is, Kenneth wasn't registered to vote yet, so he gets a B. It's a bad signature. Okay, finally, now we're on to M. Doe. This was Mary Doe. She thought she could just put M. Doe, but she actually lists her name, even though the address is correct. She lists her name as Mary when she's registered to vote, so that one won't count at all. It won't count even as qualifying as a signature because it's not a real name. So that one is getting black striped. In that case, if M. Dot, I would actually ask her, hey, could you please write Mary right there instead so that it counts? And unless she's sure, some people will actually put M. Dot as their legal name. You'll see it. But if it's not, they have to write Mary. And then she would want to initial that as well, those changes, because then she's going to run into otherwise, like our last friend here, Harold. And Harold, he forgot some things. He thought that they were at Apple Street too, but then he crossed it off. Then he thought he was at a P.O. box. But P.O. boxes do not count. If you write a P.O. box, it will get black striped. You can't be registered to vote a P.O. box. So he finally remembered that 123 First Street is his address, but he didn't initial any of these changes, the zip code too. So unfortunately, that one won't count at all. So Harold's is going to get black striped off. Okay. Now a lot of these are correctable, right? If you would have caught it, the circular said, hey, I need you to initial these changes. That signature would have ended up being a good signature because he is registered at 123 First Street. If Mary Doe, if the circular said, hey, please write your full name if that's your name, Mary Doe, as you're registered to vote, not the initial, unless the initial is how you register to vote, then she would have done that, and she could have initialed it and got another good signature there. So instead of having 5 good signatures and 2 bad signatures, and then if she also would have noticed Bob Doe here had forgot his whole address, he probably would have caught that and paying attention. Then he would have filled that in. So he would have had like 6 good signatures. So instead, there's only 3 good signatures, which could have easily been 6. This one could have been filled in the address. This one could have written their full name. If this one would have initialed, and if they would have noticed that Carl, you can't write same. You have to write 123 First Street. Well, that one could have been saved. And possibly noticing that, hey, look, Jane and John are married. One of them put one address, one put the other. You could ask them if one of those are correct, and maybe they could have corrected Jane Doe's, and that potentially could have had all 9 good signatures, right? There's no reason why they couldn't have had all 9 good signatures. Unfortunately, there's 3 good signatures and 2 bad ones. So these ones are already blacked off for being not even qualified. So now we got 3 out of 5. So the way the formula works is we'll buy 25% of the bad signatures. So in this case, with 1, 2, 3 good signatures, 25% of the bad ones would be 1. It would be 3 out of 4. We could buy 4 signatures and 3 of them would be good. In which case, one of these is going to have to be completely blacked off and is no longer a bad signature. It's just no longer exists. Now we have 3 out of 4. So this person will get paid for 4 signatures, 3 of which are good, 1 is bad. Okay, so that was 25% of the bad. If there was 6 good signatures and 2 bad, they'd buy 8 signatures, right? And so that's how that process works. So if somebody turns in a whole bunch of pages and they're at like 60% of them are good, well, this marker ends up getting used a lot, taking off bad signatures to bring it up to 75%. And so that's what that process looks like. Now, to make sure these all count at the bottom, we have to make sure that it's filled in correctly. So let's say that, let's say Sam Smith was the circulator. That's the person that witnessed all these, who should have been catching all these mistakes. And then his address, say he lives at 111 First Street. Now, he's going to just put in SD for San Diego, but unfortunately that won't count. Abbreviations do not count down here. The only one in the entire state is LA for Los Angeles. So do not put abbreviations for anything, okay? I've seen these get sent back at the end of the year, pages of them for having put SJC for San Juan Capistrano because it was too big to fit. You must put in the actual. Make sure these are correct. People rush through these. You'll try to make sure these people do them correct, and then people will rush through their own signature and invalidate it. So be very careful. Now, this part, the document was obtained between the dates of this and this. What that means was, when was the date of the first signature? Let's say that was on July 1st of 2019. And then the second then is when you got the last signature. That would be, well, in this case, it was the same day, right? We talked the same. So 7/1/19 is when it got that one, and 7/1/19 is when we got this one. And then what's today's date? Well, let's say today is 7/3/19, and I'm in what city? Not what place. Don't put Walmart. I've seen people put Walmart. San Diego is the city I'm in. If you were in San Francisco, you put San Francisco. And then Sam Smith signs it. There we are. Okay, now this is the declaration. I'll call it the deck. He has claimed that this information is true under penalty of perjury. See that part? Penalty of perjury says that these is all true. Okay, that these people actually signed them and it's the correct information to the best of that person's knowledge. So there you go. That's how validity is done. At the end of the day, that person's going to have 4 good signatures. It might say something like this somewhere along it, and that's what got sent in. All right, and that's how validity works. Now, if there is a registration, if you registered somebody to vote, well, then what happens is over in this column, there would be like a voter registration, and that you make a photocopy of the voter registration page that you, that with the person that you registered to vote, you take a photocopy of that, and it travels with this petition. You'd slip it right in here, and then this will match that it goes there. So if Harold Doe had filled out a voter registration form, and it says voter registration in pencil. Now, if you notice on the side here, everything that's been used is pencil. This isn't really ever for circulators. I'm showing what happens with there, but when they do, this is only pencil. Outside this and this, the pen never gets touched here or here. This is, all this stuff is done in pencil, and it should never be done. You don't need anybody to do it. Just showing you what it'll look like at the end. Okay. And so the voter registration form will go with it all the way up to the county and then all the state, so that when they get it, they know that that's a signature that will count, and there's the voter registration form to prove that they are currently a registered voter. These voter rolls, a lot of people ask, well, where do we get the voter? How do we know that person said they were registered to vote? Why didn't they show up? Well, at the time this petition started, let's say it started on July 1st, then that's when they would have to have their voter rolls start from. So the people that sign this would have to be registered to vote at the place they say they are from the time that this petition started all the way to the time that you gathered the signatures.